I want women to have choice around what path they want to have in terms of career. Many of our clients that come to us at WomenVenture prioritize, I want to run a successful business. Our mission is building profitable and sustainable businesses. And so it's in line with our mission. But also what we hear from clients is, I want to own my own home. I want to create wealth generation for my family. Yeah. And those dreams, those aspirations, I totally get that because that's exactly what my parents wanted for me. And how lucky am I to be able to lead this organization to help every single day make an impact in a woman's life. And we know that women give back to their community.
Hi there. Thanks for joining us. I'm Leah Alter.
And I'm Joanna Erisman.
And this is WomenShare, a celebration of women in financial services.
Before we dive into today's discussion, we want to thank Extella, our presenting sponsor of WomenShare. Extella is dedicated to helping financial professionals take their practices to new heights.
So if you're ready for a firm that goes the extra mile for its advisors, check out Extella today at go.extella.com/womenshare. That's go.axtella.com/womenshare.
Well, today we are hearing from a guest whose career journey has spanned the financial services industry and the nonprofit sector. LeeAnn Rasachak is CEO of WomenVenture, a nonprofit organization that offers business training and loan services for women entrepreneurs. Prior to that, LeeAnn's career began in consumer retail marketing, followed by a decade in the financial services industry, including roles in public relations, brand, and digital transformation at Securian Financial and RBC Wealth Management. Between LeeAnn's time in the financial services industry and now her work with women business owners, which many of our guests and listeners are passionate about supporting, we know you'll love to hear her story and her perspective as a business leader. So LeeAnn, welcome to WomenShare.
Well, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm happy to be here.
So LeeAnn, thank you so much for joining us. You have had a very successful career in financial services for a number of years. We'd love to hear your story on making the transition to CEO at WomenVenture. What compelled you to make the change, and how has that experience been being a, first-time CEO in a new industry?
Yes, well, as I've been reflecting on this question, and it's a common one that I receive, and I think about the opportunities that I've had in being able to be part of transformations. And I am a transformation junkie, as it turns out. Like, I'm addicted to it. I love the ability to come in and help organizations kind of figure out what's next for them. And why I was attracted to WomenVenture and moving into the nonprofit space and working at a community development financial institution came at a time where it was a pivotal point in the rest of the world. It was in the middle of our racial reckoning in 2020, post George Floyd's murder. It was during still in the pandemic, and then also becoming a new mom in a multitude of ways. I have a blended family of 4 children. 3 are my bonus kids, and we also have an ours baby, so our bio baby. And during that time, there was a lot that was happening in the world that I was I wasn't a part of it. I felt like I was observing it, and I was observing it from my basement as we were all working from home. And I wanted to do more for community and more in terms of impact. I was at RBC Wealth Management. I was sitting on the board of WomenVenture. And as an organization at RBC, we were working through what can we do that is more impactful, rolling up our sleeves. We provide generous financial contributions to community, but really about how do we get kind of on the ground with our work. And I wasn't able to do that from my home. I wasn't able to do that from my basement for several months, even after having my child. And WomenVenture's work, right, in the community development financial institution space means having the ability to impact women in entrepreneurship and small business ownership through providing affordable capital access, and business training and development. And I came from a family of entrepreneurs. I came from having tried and failed launching a business with my former partner. And I never wanted someone to go through that experience again. So it's like all these things that I had experienced dovetailed into this one opportunity, which is becoming the CEO of WomenVenture. And that was a big leap for me because I'd never been a CEO and I've never worked in the nonprofit space.
Wow. And just like, what a bold move. Like, I so admire the fact that you went for it, because there would probably be a lot of not convenient excuses, real valid reasons why it wasn't a great time. I've got a new baby. There's a pandemic. I've got other children to, be concerned about amid this pandemic as well. But you went for it. That's so impressive.
Did you find that, all of the other things that you had done that led you to that point, along with just your kind of personal passions about what was going on in the world at the time, poised you to be ready for the moment? Or what was that transition like for you?
I think that every role has prepared me for the role that I'm in today. And I believe that because I started off in PR and communications, right? And was in the retail and consumer space. And during that time, a couple decades ago, there were things that were new to this space, like digital and social media and, even building and navigating websites. And it was one of those things that was like, it was just handed to me in the sense of like, okay, you're the closest one to being a digital native. You can help us figure this out. And so I was always the one to help figure the things out, right? And then I'd solve that problem and then kind of move on to the next one. And at large Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 brands that were going through all kinds of whether brand transformation or the financial crisis, and keeping doors open, right? Learning issues management and navigating through the financial crisis was probably the biggest and most pivotal career experience that I've had in that. And preparing me for this role as well. And that it positioned me well to lead as an individual contributor and to gain trust of senior leaders, and where I was able to work right alongside some senior executives and who gave me several chances, right, to learn how to do things and fail safely and lead transformations within those organizations. And so whether it is strong communications, media relations, issues management, replatforming and building an entire e-commerce experience for selling Sleep Number beds, right? At a time where who knew that people would want to buy beds online, right? Like that trust and the advancement in technology that came along with it. So all of those pieces, leading cross-functional teams, $10 million initiatives, very well prepared me for this role. And then I also knew that anything I didn't know, you've got to lean on the team and the community and then assess what's the toolkit that I have and what tools do I need to add to it to be successful in the role.
I love that. I love the both the confidence and belief in your ability and reflecting on here's the experience that I'm bringing to this. But then also, I think there's studies that show, right? Most women will want to make sure they check all of 100% of the boxes or qualifications for a job before they go for it. But the fact that you saw, hey, there's this strong team at WomenVenture already that are part of this network that can make me successful. So I just really appreciate that perspective. And like I said, I have so much admiration for the fact that you did this, and clearly it's going well. So now turning to WomenVenture specifically, there are some macro themes that have emerged across the broad array of guests that we've had on the show. There's this shared passion for serving women business owners and entrepreneurs, whether it's as a financial advisor or providing mentorship to them in, fostering their business growth. So tell us more about WomenVenture and ways our listeners could support your mission.
Yes, thank you. And again, I really appreciate the platform to be able to share about WomenVenture and then how this community can help to support. So WomenVenture has been around for 46 years, and we provide business training, development, business consulting, as well as access to affordable capital. So we are a lender of anywhere between $1,000 and $100,000 for businesses. And We will help anyone that comes to us. Our primary target audience are women. Roughly 95% of who we serve are identify as women. And so when we think about like how can people help to support, I think then there's several ways. Easy ways are being able to shop women-owned businesses and to support them. That we have a directory on womenventure.org with 400 some businesses on it. There's a live map that you can use as you're out and about to see, and if you're out shopping, you want to stop in at a restaurant, or you're looking for a consulting business or whatever it may be, that you can pull that up on your phone or your desktop. You can help to promote, like, and share and engage with us on social media to be able to help. You can give money to us, right? So as individual contributions and or with your corporations and your foundations, how we are able to operate is highly dependent on the ability to secure funding from diverse funding pools. And so it's a mix of government, it is private and corporate foundation, individual contributions, and then a small percentage that's our own earned revenue as we look at our loan fees and interests, as well as the classes that we operate. From a volunteer capacity, we need more people in terms of mentorship, and that can be mentorship one-on-one within our cohort programs. It could be also coming in and volunteering to say, I want to work with a set of clients to analyze their books, right? And I can be that person as a sounding board to look at your financials and to give you some feedback on it as an established business. I am always on the lookout for great committee members. We have 2 loan committees, finance, governance, advancement, our women's business advisory committee, because we are an SBA designated women's business center, the only one in the Twin Cities, and we are the only women's focused community development financial institution in Minnesota. So always looking for committees, which is also a great pipeline into board service. The other thing that I would ask is many firms, organizations have teams of employees who have subject matter expertise who might be looking for a project. So we partner with organizations now on project-based initiatives. If there's a strategy where we could lend or where we could use an extra ear sounding board on diving in-kind contributions from agency support, firm support, it could be creative, it could be strategy. Those are things that we do leverage currently within our community of volunteers.
Excellent. And I think when LeeAnn and I first met, we were talking about our passion for women in business and supporting that. And I was like, oh, have you heard of WomenVenture? At the time, embarrassingly, I didn't realize she was in Texas. For some reason, I had in my head she was in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. But to that point, as we checked it out, but there are remote volunteer opportunities as well. Yes, so there's like in person as well as virtual. So, okay. That's great.
Yes, we have. So we offer, just as an example, right, for our training programs, there's 25 active training programs throughout the year. And those are cohort programs. Some are a few weeks, some are multi weeks longer than that. And so we try to mirror kind of our weather maps here in Minnesota. And so more of those classes are often offered remote and online during our colder months. And then we do offer some in-person classes because that's a learning style that a lot of our clients have the desire, right, to be in person. But there's a ton of flexibility in how volunteers can show up and support us.
That's amazing. And people are always asking what they can do. And you just listed so many ways to get involved, whether it's monetarily or with your time. So lots of ways. You've got a really strong experience in leading task force and employee resource groups that open up opportunities for diverse populations in the workplace. And you have a diversity and inclusion certificate from Cornell. A mission of this show is something Joanne and I are very passionate about, is helping to support diversity in financial services beyond women, but also women of color and backgrounds. That diversity is really important, I think, to the evolution of financial services. What advice do you have for someone listening to take action in their own organization, whether that's a small advisory firm or a larger, financial institution, corporate office?
Yeah, so I led many employee resource groups and started some too. So while I was at Security and Financial, as well as RBC Wealth Management. And something that's important to know is that you don't have to do it alone. And likely there are others who, if you don't have employee resource groups, that's a great place to start. And I would say establishing them. There's employee resource groups that I led that were women focused or multicultural focused, right? And establishing that first and having an executive sponsor is important because they really can be the advocate at the decision making kind of time when it comes to budget, and when they're at the table of what are the things that we want to prioritize, can support these efforts in a way that's really meaningful for employees. And I would also say, whether you've already started whether you have an established mature ERG or you're just getting started, is that don't wait for perfection. Like any movement, incremental effort is progress, and it's meaningful. And I recently shared, as part of a panel conversation focused on DEI, and I implore leaders and decision makers and HR teams to invest in resources to help to support leaders and employees to have difficult conversations, to learn, to be immersed in community, and to be immersed in culture, because that's where the work happens. And so if you want to make it meaningful, it is really connecting in with community and seeing people where they are at and really seeking to understand, and that they do not need to have an isolated kind of experience as they go through it. That sponsorship is really important. And if you don't know how to do it, there is a whole peer set and community who have done it and can be a great model of where do we get started on how to do this, right? And I had, again, like a recent conversation with someone who very senior, cares about this work, and also acknowledged, she's like, I don't know how to do this. I'm a middle-aged white man. I want to navigate this space. I have an incredible team that's super diverse, and a bit of not imposter syndrome, but just this sense of like getting it wrong. Right. And so many people fear that they're going to get it wrong. And I'll say that I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I'm a fan of allowing room for people to learn and to make some mistakes. And those are learning opportunities, and to give some grace there. And then as people coming into it, to know that you might not know it all. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And it's a journey. We are all on a journey.
When you talk about the importance of having executive sponsorship, I'd love to just drill in on that a little bit more. Meaning, if you're forming an ERG, is it getting alignment with an executive to say, we are going to be bringing to you, we're going to be shining light on some areas where we have some gaps, and I'm looking for commitment from the executive team to consider and act on them. Like what's the nature of that conversation of getting some, like, there's a difference between, you can be a group and we'll give you a budget, right? Versus we are ready and willing to act. Like, how do you navigate that part of the conversation? Yeah. Which is a really tough question. So like, LeeAnn, just solve it for us, please. But I'm just curious, in your experience, any successes or learning of something that didn't go well?
How I've done it and how I've done it well, again, is you're not showing up by yourself. And I would do it if I was the only one. I would still advocate, right? Like, because you could tie it to whether I'm in nonprofit or for-profit organizations. I always develop a business case because that resonates with everyone, right? If you can position it with what are your goals and objectives and what is the intended outcome, and here's what this investment is going to do for us, rattle off a few things in terms of metrics that matter to, I think matter to business leaders and business owners or firm leaders, is the employee engagement, attraction, retention, the ability to demonstrate that there are markets. This is an example that I had at WomenVenture when I first came in, is that it is important for us to reflect the client base that we have, right? And a lot of that is diverse perspectives, and that means transforming the organization so that the staff and our board of directors reflect the communities in which we live and work, right? And I know, and it wasn't that long ago that I was in the financial services and wealth management space, the shift of who is going to hold the power in terms of monetary decision making and that wealth transfer that's happening now to women and the causes that they care about and the philanthropy that is tied into that and the generational wealth they are investing in programs that are more diverse, that are more eco-friendly, that care about climate change, that care about supporting our Main Street businesses, that care about the development of our children across generations. And so finding that common ground language of what's going to translate to the decision maker is core. Finding that key message, and that's a little bit of that marketing and public relations critical thinking piece of how is what I'm trying to pitch going to translate to this audience? And why should it matter to them?
It's good. And I think to your point of also tying into community and like cultural experiences, like of the people in your organization. I can't remember who the quote was from, but it's like the importance of the inclusion part of a DEI initiative,
Yes.
right? Like I've heard it stated as, don't invite me to the prom, but not ask me to dance, right? Like you have to actually.
Yeah.
So I just think within this industry, it's so important and something we're trying to navigate. So I really appreciate you sharing just some of those specific ways to bridge this and just start to gain traction. Like we said, in an organization, whether it's large or small.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
and your point
Yes.
about
Yeah.
progress over perfection, I think that is a good reminder that something is definitely better than the status quo. So whatever small incremental things that you can do over time can make a bigger impact.
It can. And before you know it, after a decade, or all of a sudden you've just lived through a transformation, you didn't even know it.
Right.
And
Right.
and there's lots of examples of where those changes can be made. When we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and you talk about recruitment and hiring, and even how you write your job. So I'm tying this back to a recent experience of a senior level HR professional who was sharing their experience, and there was a sense of like there's still decision makers above me, right? Where it's like I am in the leadership position, but I'm not the ultimate decision maker. And the thing is that and there's truth to that. And at the same time, there are ways in which we help to formulate policies, procedures. They're leaning on our recommendations. And so rewriting how you're recruiting your talent, the interview questions, how resumes are presented, where you're showing up in terms of recruiting, and ensuring that you have there are career fairs that are out there as an example, but there's also like community knows if you're there and you're present or if you're there on an ad hoc basis, right? And so it's very relationship based, and financial services, wealth management, that's the business's relationships and building trust.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
So it's like leaning into what you know how to do already.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then adding the tools that you need. And there are external experts, training resources to help to augment and supplement what you don't have. And so when you ask the question about, well, what about like smaller firms?
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of like buy, build, or lease. Sometimes you might need to lease some resources because you're not in a position where you can build it yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, before we get into our next question, our longtime listeners know how passionate we are about the next generation of women advisors and investors.
And we're thrilled to be partnering with Extella that shares that same passion. Extella provides resources for professionals through efforts like their Nova Women's Collective, which enables members to network, connect, and gain insights from their peers.
So if that type of support sounds like a good fit for you, check out all they have to offer at go.extella.com/WomenShare. That's go.axtella.com/WomenShare.
Okay, so LeeAnn, you've always had an entrepreneurial drive, and I know this from listening to some other interviews that you've done and just hearing your career story in other forums. So just would love for you to share a little bit more about how that came to be, how you cultivated that entrepreneurial drive throughout your career.
The entrepreneurial drive has been with me since birth. My family immigrated here from Laos in the late 1970s after the Vietnam War. And my parents were refugees that met here in the United States. And both of their families came from farming, agriculture, and small business in Laos, and they grew up in two very different settings. And I can tell you that, coming to the US, it was a total kind of shock, cultural shock to them. And it's trying to figure out, like, how do we live here? How do we navigate? And so both of them went into manufacturing jobs. And I had it modeled for me. Of my mom, especially, both very hardworking parents, but my mom always knew, like, there's always more out there. There's always more money to be made. You need to go find it and like manifest it for yourself. And so she worked in a manufacturing facility, and she's a fabulous cook. And the people knew it. And she would, on the side, she would make egg rolls and fried rice, and she would sell that to her coworkers. And her workplace was cool with it, because all the line managers, of course, were like, we love your food. Right. And so she showed me these examples of, like, you can start your own thing and you can sell it. Right. And so that was one piece. And this other, for me personally, was very, very early age, probably 11 years old. And I wanted to make my own money, because I kept hearing, like, no, I'm not going to buy that, Champion sweatshirt for you, or, find your own money to get gas station candy or whatever it was at the time.
Right.
And so I was like, fine, I love kids. I'm going to go babysit, and I'm going to help out, our neighbors. And even at that young age, many people in the same season of life, but with younger children, and they knew that my parents were home, right? So if anything happened, like, we could always run up to the house or call them. So I started my own babysitting business, in elementary school, 5th grade, 6th grade, and use that all to help put me through part of college. I was a college nanny. And so I said, what are the ways in which I can help fund the things that I wanted to do? And so this entrepreneurial spirit started very early. Now, there was an expectation from my parents of, we came here to the US, we want you to be, in their mind, success was find a corporate job. It's 9 to 5. It pays you well. You don't have to be on your feet all day, right? Like, that was success to them. There was stability around that. And so I was put on a path of, did really well in, grade school, went to St. Thomas, went into PR and business management, and got on the corporate track. I mentioned trying to start a business with a former partner before, and beautiful craftsmanship and woodwork that was done. And so then I helped in the marketing piece and the pop-up shops, and quickly learned, because we did not know about WomenVenture, we didn't know about other CFI organizations, that being a corporate leader is very different than being an entrepreneur or a small business owner.
Yes.
And from that experience, because we tapped into retirement funds, there's a lot of stress and pressure to be able to do that well. And that's an experience that I will always remember. And I don't want that for other women. I want women to have choice around what path they want to have in terms of career. Many of our clients that come to us at WomenVenture prioritize, I want to run a successful business. Our mission is building profitable and sustainable businesses. And so it's in line with our mission. But also what we hear from clients is, I want to own my own home. I want to create wealth generation for my family.
Yes.
And those dreams, those aspirations, I totally get that, because that's exactly what my parents wanted for me. And how lucky am I to be able to lead this organization to help every single day make an impact in a woman's life. And we know that women give back to their communities. They take care of their families, and then they give back to community. And so often we have clients that start out with us, and it's this kind of infinite loop of starting out, learning, coming back, expanding, growing, coming back, taking a loan or receiving a grant. And when they're successful, they come back and they mentor the next generation of business owners.
It's truly like a full circle moment, both for you and for all of the women that you're helping. It's
Yes.
That's got to be so incredibly satisfying and fulfilling. And on that same note, we ask every guest, LeeAnn, what is the best career advice that you've ever received? Although it sounds like your mom gave you some great advice.
Some of the best career advice that I've received came from allies. I have many female mentors and friends who've served on my personal board of directors, who I worked with and worked for, who've been amazing. But I do want to recognize that there have been some incredible allies of mine who gave me a chance to try things that like I never led a $10 million project on a replatform on a website, or, there was some really pivotal career moments of someone saying to me, take the chance, right? You're already doing the job. On paper, I didn't have the title. I didn't have the responsibility technically, but I was already doing the job. And so going back to the comment of so often we wait until we are 100 as women, 90 to 100% qualified for the job, or already doing it before we apply for it. The best advice to me was take the leap. Just take the leap. And of course, there's this assessment around like, well, what's the risk, right? What is the risk that I'm taking for myself or for my family? And what could that look like? But then also this, like, have the confidence in yourself. You know how to do it. You've demonstrated it. And if you don't know how to do it, you'll figure it out. And there's a team to support you. Again, like that comes with hard work. It comes with confidence, and it comes with commitment, right? Because it's going to be challenging. These are not easy things to try and do. And so if you can manage your own expectations around that, you can be successful. And it's take the leap. And I learned that I feel like I learned that lesson too late, like I was probably in my mid-30s, right? And so my message to the audience, no matter what age you are listening to this, is to really consider that. Think about, there are plenty of men that raise their hands before they even hear what the question is, right? To answer it. Or maybe they're 20 to 30% qualified for the job and they've already applied for it and they've got it. Yeah. And so it's like, that's the balance. And so don't be so hard on yourself, and take the leap and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, you say mid-30s. I was in my early 40s, right before I was willing to take the leap. So I think even if you take little leaps along the way and are able to build the confidence in those little leaps, when it's time to make the big leap, it won't seem quite as drastic or dramatic.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and one other thing we wanted to ask, I know we're close to our time here, but was curious, since this is about celebrating women in this space, aside from celebrating so much about your career and what you've accomplished and what you're doing at WomenVenture, is there anything outside of work we can help you celebrate today?
Being able to do this and being a mom and a bonus mom, and, that I can pour in a way that I can show up in both places and for the most part do pretty well. I'm celebrating that. It feels really big some days. And right now there is a message that says you can't do both, and you can do both. And there is community, sisterhood, allyship. Those things are real. I'm celebrating that. And it's end of school year. So, we've got a lot of big things that are happening right now, and it seems to all happen at the same time. But I feel really lucky that I can be present in doing both things, even though some days it feels like my hair is on fire, but I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the laugh, because I was starting to cry. So thank you. I love that.
Yes. And celebrating with you, for you, to you, all of that. Being a mom and also being in charge of a lot of big things that are important to a lot of people can feel weighty for sure. So what is the best way to connect with you, connect with WomenVenture? How can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. So LeeAnn Rasachak, quick search, you'll find me very easily. We can connect there. WomenVenture.org is where you can find us as an organization, and there's a whole calendar of events, which I'm deeply engaged in, right? And so if ever a connection, learning more about how to start an ERG or how to make the pivot, I'm happy to have those conversations. And it may not be right away, but know that I very much want to share my experience, and I hope that it helps someone.
Fantastic. And all of your information is linked to this episode on the WomenShare website as well. And I want to say thank you again to our sponsor, Extella, a network of firms that goes the extra mile for the next generation of women advisors and investors. For more information, visit them at go.extella.com/womenshare. That's go.axtella.com/womenshare.
LeeAnn, thank you so much for joining us today. That is our show. If ours is a mission that you want to share in, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. With that, I'm Leah Alter.
And I'm Joanna Erisman, and we'll catch you on the next episode of WomenShare.